First of all, this is, I grew up working in record stores and hanging out in record stores, so I love any opportunity to spend time in record stores. And there's still something so satisfying about picking up a record. Like, I know maybe environmentally it might not be the most responsible thing, but whether it's like this Proustian thing of like, you know, picking up records and being able to hold them and like look at the art and read the songs, and this record in particular, the first Public Image album, was really important. Well, it still is important to me, because I had been a punk rock kid when I was growing up, and when John Lydon started Public Image, it was so interesting because it wasn't what anyone would have expected. You know, the first single, which is called Public Image, is this like really great, almost like pop punk song. And the rest of the album is so experimental and dark and strange. And when I was growing up, I remember I saved up my money to buy this record. Like, it took me a couple of weeks of like cutting lawns and doing odd jobs to have enough money to buy this album. And I took it home, and it didn't make sense to me, because I knew the first song, but then the rest of it was like kind of challenging and experimental. But what would happen back then was I would buy a record, and if it didn't make sense to me, I blamed myself. You know, now I think like a lot of people listen to a record, and if they don't immediately get it, they just put it aside. But I had saved up money to buy this record, so I took it home, and I lived with it, and I listened to it until it made sense to me. You know, so like, because I knew that like, at the time I was 15 years old, this record was more sophisticated than I was. So I was like, okay, this is a challenge, I have to learn from this record. It was true for a lot of my early favorite records, you know, like Brian Eno, Roxy Music, Gang of Four, records that were really like a little challenging. So that's one of the reasons why I picked this, because it was just an incredibly important record to me when I was growing up. I also wanted to pick this Marianne Faithfull album, because when I started work on my new album, Innocence, this was the inspiration for it, which is sort of ironic because my record doesn't sound anything like this record. But I listened, the hit single off this record was Broken English. And if you don't know it, it's one of the greatest songs ever written. Like, everything about it is just perfect. Her voice is perfect. The song is perfect, but also the musicianship, because I think, if I remember, like, I thought Sly and Robbie played on it. And this guy, Wally Badarou, was the keyboardist. And it's just this amazing sort of disco reggae-inspired new wave song with her amazing dark vocals on it. And when I first started working on my new album, that was like, I was like, I want to try and make music that sounds like that. Then I sort of veered away from that and ended up making a more sort of like lo-fi, almost indie record. But this was the starting point. And just a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine was hanging out with Marianne Faithfull, and my friend knew what a fan I was of specifically that song, Broken English. And so she sent me Marianne Faithfull singing this in a restaurant. They were in a restaurant, like smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee. And so my friend recorded her singing Broken English a cappella on her phone. So it's the middle of the day and I click on my email and there's Marianne Faithfull in a restaurant in LA singing a cappella Broken English in 2013. So that MP3, if it's even an MP3, is now one of my prized possessions. She then got Marianne Faithfull to sing Sister Morphine in a restaurant for me. So now I have Broken English and Sister Morphine on my computer, which, granted, I can't hold them because they're MP3s, but they're still prized possessions. So, not surprisingly, this is a record that has followed me around for my entire life because it's Moby Grape, and we have the same name because I've been called Moby since I was born. The way I got my nickname was my legal name is Richard Melville Hall, and I'm related to Herman Melville, who wrote Moby Dick. So when I was born, as a joke, my dad nicknamed me Moby, thinking that this would be my infant joke nickname. And now I'm 48 years old and I still have my infant joke nickname. But this particular record, my mom and all of her different boyfriends growing up not to imply that my mom was promiscuous, but she had some boyfriends, and they were all pot-smoking hippies, and this was an important record for them. And I, of course, kept gravitating to it, thinking like, wow, we have the same name. What significance does this record have? And there's a little bit of trivia about this record. It's incredibly subversive. For some reason, not a lot of people know this. Well, maybe not a lot of people know Moby Grape, but Skip Spence, you'll see in the album artwork, he's giving the finger to the camera, which in the 60s, the hippies thought this was like an incredibly revolutionary, subversive act to have a successful record where the singer was like giving the finger, and that somehow that got past the censor. So like hippies would be like, yeah, Skip Spence giving the finger to the camera. That's pretty cool. What year? I mean, this is probably like 68, 69. So back when vinyl was king. So that's me and my namesake, Moby Grape. So I was doing an interview recently, and sort of someone was asking me like the inspiration for my new record, and the first inspiration was Marianne Faithfull, but the biggest influence for the new record is actually Neil Young. I've been a huge Neil Young fan since I was probably 3 years old, because my mom loved the album Deja Vu. And so one of my first memories is hearing like the song Country Girl or Helpless by Neil Young when I was 3 or 4 years old, because I was born in '65, so that's about when it came out. And I'd forgotten about this record, because I used to work in a record store, and so I spent hours and hours and years going through the racks, like just picking up records and randomly looking at them. And I can't believe I've never heard this record, because you look at the track listing and it's amazing. I mean, it has like Ohio, Find the Cost of Freedom, Southern Man, For What It's Worth. I mean, like, and it's a film directed by Neil Young. And so now I don't know if it's like a watchable film, but I now want to go see this this Neil Young film, because I'd completely forgotten about this record. And the way that I would cite Neil Young as an influence on my new album is the sort of, well, at least what I was trying to do is making it vulnerable and quite simple. Because when I was very young, I studied music theory and studied classical music, and I had a guitar teacher who loved complicated experimental jazz, and I kept gravitating towards more simple music. And I remember listening to Neil Young's Helpless while I was being forced to learn music theory, and Helpless only has 3 chords. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, this song only has 3 chords, and it's so much more emotionally powerful than all this music I'm being forced to learn that's incredibly Byzantine and complicated. So for the new record, I kept trying to remind myself, like, almost like what would Neil Young do? Like trying to let it be everything like understated and restrained and sort of fragile and vulnerable. So, but now I have to go home and try and find Journey Through the Past. Maybe it's on YouTube. Hopefully it's watchable. I mean, a lot of the movies from like late 60s, early 70s, like Performance and Head and Song Remains the Same, like they're interesting artifacts, but it's kind of hard to watch the whole thing. So I'm assuming that will be the case with this, but who knows? I won't know until I see it. This might surprise some people, but I'm a huge Kris Kristofferson fan. In fact, one of my goals is to produce a new Kris Kristofferson album, just because I love his voice. And his some of the early songs like Help Me Make It Through the Night, and he wrote Me and Bobby McGee. This is just an amazing, these are his demos from 1968 to 72. And apparently he was like a very, very vulnerable, sort of delicate person. Very, very shy, which is one of the reasons why he wasn't that comfortable doing his own songs. And I had this amazing experience a few years ago. Like one of the strangest things about being a public figure musician is you get to meet your heroes, and sometimes you get to do things with them. You know, like one time I went on tour with David Bowie. I sang a Joy Division song with New Order. I once had a sing-along at a nightclub in London with Ian McCulloch from Echo and the Bunnymen, Joe Strummer and Mick Jones from The Clash, and Peter and Barney from New Order. So it's like you get to meet your heroes. But I played at a fundraiser with Kris Kristofferson a couple of years ago, and I got him to do me and Bobby McGee. And this is one of my favorite moments. We were rehearsing, and he's such a nice man. We were rehearsing, and I said, Kris, doesn't it go up to A here? And in his gravelly voice, he said, "Nah, Moby, that's the way Janis did it. I never did it like that." And I was like, wow, you knew Janis Joplin? No, of course you did, because she covered your song. So it was just an amazing moment. But I think he's such an underrated singer and songwriter. I mean, Help Me Make It Through the Night is such a beautiful song, and so like perfect and sort of nihilistic in a really sweet way. So I do hope that I get to make a record with Kris Kristofferson someday.